It's only happened 3 times that a quarterback is thrown for 50 or more touchdowns. Peyton Manning holds the record with 55, and Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes threw for 50. So those are your top 3. Welcome to Just the Stats NFL, the show that covers the NFL's statistical leaders from the all-time greats to the current players leading the NFL. I'm Ernie Jennings, your host, and I'm back looking at another team from the AFC. So we just wrapped up the previous 3 divisions of the AFC, and we're now on the final division, and that will be the AFC West. So we'll be looking at the 4 teams there, and then we will move on to the NFC. So, as usual, we'll start with the first place team, which was the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs finished with a record of 15 wins and 2 losses. So, along with the Detroit Lions, the 2 teams held the best record in the NFL. So, the Chiefs at home, they were 8-0. On the road, they were 7-2. And in the division, they were 5 wins, 1 loss. Very good record. But how do these Chiefs of 2024 compare to the greatest Chiefs players of all time? Well, that's what we're going to find out right now in this episode of Just the Stats NFL. So as usual, we will begin with the coaches. Andy Reid, a couple years ago, passed Hank Stram as the all-time winningest coach of the Kansas City Chiefs. Andy Reid currently has 143 wins. Hank Stram is second with 124. Hank Stram was the coach from 1960 to 1974. So 14 years. Andy Reid's been the coach since 2013. So really, it didn't take Andy Reid as many games to get to the same point as Hank Stram, even though Hank Stram was a great coach as well. Different era. Those are the top 2. Marty Schottenheimer was the other coach with 101 wins. So 3 coaches with more than 100 wins. Very good. Comparing this to some other teams, you have quite a few coaches with good records, especially the top 3. So that's impressive. So those are your top coaches. Andy Reid's just going to continue extending out his lead as far as wins go with this season, and whether it's his last or not, he'll definitely make it difficult for the next coach to catch him. All right, let's move to the players themselves, and we'll start with the quarterbacks. So right now, as of last year, Patrick Mahomes passed Len Dawson as the all-time leading quarterback as far as yards go. Patrick Mahomes has 32,352. Len Dawson, who played from 1962 to 1975, has 28,507. Those are your top 2 quarterbacks as far as yards go. So very good. Patrick Mahomes is obviously just going to keep moving up the charts. He's got a ways to go before he can make the top 10 as far as yards go, but the pace he's going, and as good as he is and continues to stay with the team, give him another several years before we'll see him up there, but he's definitely heading in the right direction. When it comes to passing TDs, again, it's Patrick Mahomes passing Len Dawson last year. Len Dawson from 1962 to 1975 had 237. Patrick Mahomes has 245. Those are your top 2 quarterbacks as far as touchdowns go. What's interesting is that even though Patrick Mahomes passed Len Dawson actually had a better percentage rate of throwing TDs, 6.4 to Patrick Mahomes, 5.9. So it's somewhat interesting that he was able to do that. All right. That is the touchdown leaders. Let's look at interceptions. And as I've always said, this is not a category where you'll see Patrick Mahomes. Len Dawson is the leader by far with 178 interceptions in his career with the Kansas City Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes is 5th with 74. So quite a ways to go. He'll move into second, whether it's this year or not. Bill Kenny's second with 86, and Patrick Mahomes has 74. I don't know if you'll see Mahomes throwing 12 interceptions this season, but if he did, he'd move up into tie for seconds. But we'll see how it goes. 12's a lot for him, really, but we'll see. The final category that we'll look at as far as quarterback goes, how many times have they been sacked? And that's Len Dawson again with 372 times he's been sacked. Patrick Mahomes has been sacked 184, which puts him at fourth. And again, he definitely could move into second place and probably will. I would say he only needs to be sacked 11 times this next season, and he will pass Bill Kenny, who's second all time with 195. Like I said, Patrick Mahomes has 184. But again, this is a category where Mahomes is really good. Len Dawson was sacked at a rate of 9.1%. Patrick Mahomes has only been sacked at a rate of 4.2. So really keeps himself out of trouble better than most quarterbacks do. All right, let's move into the running backs and let's look at the best Kansas City Chiefs as far as that goes. So as far as yards, Jamaal Charles from 2008 to 2016 has 7,260 yards. Now, I'm a little surprised in this category that you don't have somebody even with more yards than this. I would almost have guessed that somebody had more than that. Priest Holmes is second with 6,070. He played from 2001 to 2007. So those are your top two. Kareem Hunt, who was with the team last season, has 2,879. So there's really nobody currently playing. Actually, when you discount Kareem Hunt, the leading active player is Patrick Mahomes himself with 2,243 yards. So that's not what you want. You need a running back in the backfield that's going to help you out better than that. So we'll see how this season goes as far as running backs go. Isaiah Pacheco is the current actual running back on the team who's on this chart. He's 19th all time with 2,075 yards. So he'll be the guy, I'm assuming, who will move up this chart somewhat. If he had a season where he could stay on the field the entire season, you might see him move up quite a ways. It's just he doesn't seem to have the ability, the way he runs so hard. I don't know that he'll make it through an entire season. But if he had a 1,000-yard season, he'd move all the way up into 10th on the rushing charts for the Kansas City Chiefs. So we'll be able to watch that this coming season. When it comes to touchdowns, by far it's Priest Holmes, who, like I said, from 2001 to 2007, he had 76 touchdowns rushing. That's impressive. Larry Johnson was second from 2003 to 2009 with 55. And Marcus Allen, surprisingly, this is crazy. I just remember Marcus Allen playing for the Oakland Raiders against the Kansas City Chiefs. And to see him here third all time on the Kansas City Chiefs list of touchdowns rushing with 44 is interesting. But those are your top three. And again, there's nobody right now. Patrick Mahomes is 18th all time on the list of current players. He has 14 rushing touchdowns. So you really would like to see a running back kind of pick it up. And Kareem Hunt is on the team still. He's just not going to be the starter. So actually he has 22 touchdowns, which puts him at 9th. But you're not going to see a big movement out of him, I wouldn't think. Isaiah Pacheco is 20th, just behind Patrick Mahomes, 14. Pacheco has 13 rushing touchdowns in his career with the Chiefs. So those are your leading rushers. Let's look at their wide receivers. And here you have Travis Kelce, who a little bit ago passed Tony Gonzalez, another great player, both tight ends. That's interesting that the top two receivers for the Kansas City Chiefs are tight ends. So Travis Kelce currently has 12,151 yards receiving. We'll see how many more yards he gets this year, and if he goes beyond this year, we'll have to wait and see on that. But they're the top two. As far as wide receivers go, Otis Taylor from 1965 to 1975 had 7,306 yards receiving. Those are your top three when it comes to yards. When you're looking at receptions himself, again, it's Travis Kelce with 1,004 receptions. That is really an impressive amount. And when we're looking at the all-time numbers, there's only 15 receivers, whether they're tight end or wide receivers or whatever, who have 1,000 or more receptions. Travis Kelce just made it onto that list this past season. So we'll see how far up that list he progresses in this coming year. That'll be a fun thing to watch. Tony Gonzalez was second with 916 receptions. So both very good when it comes to receptions. Travis Kelce currently is third all time as far as tight ends go in receptions. He's behind Tony Gonzalez, who played for other teams as well. Tony Gonzalez ended up with 1,325 receptions. Jason Witten has 1,228. I don't see Travis Kelce playing 3 more years. He'd have to get 3 years of about 100 to catch Tony Gonzalez all time. But those are your top tight ends as far as receptions go. And again, when you're looking at yards, Travis Kelce is again on this list he's third again behind the same two players. Tony Gonzalez ended up with 15,127 yards. Jason Witten had 13,046. And currently, like I said, Travis Kelce has 12,151. It is possible that he could catch Jason Witten. I know he's been working out. He looks a little slimmer, but there is debate going on, and we'll just have to wait until the season starts whether Travis Kelce has just lost a lot of his mojo or if he has enough left for another season. And it'll be interesting to see how it goes for him in this upcoming season. When we're looking at touchdowns, Travis Kelce, again, just passed Tony Gonzalez last year. Gonzalez, from 1997 to 2008, had 76 touchdown receptions. Travis Kelce now has 77. So just this past season, passed him on the touchdowns list. Currently, that's not enough to get him into the top 12, but still a good number. And he would need to get quite a bit more to make even the top two tight ends. And I don't see Travis Kelce breaking 100 receptions. That's where he's going to need to get to catch these other tight ends as far as touchdowns go. When we're looking at the running back situation for the Kansas City Chiefs as far as receptions go, Kimber Anders, who played from 1991 to 2000 as a fullback, had 369 receptions. That leads the team as far as running backs go in receptions. So when it comes to yards, we're looking at, again, Kimber Anders with 2,829 yards when it comes to as a fullback. So those are your top two, and we're looking at the final category. We'll look at touchdowns real quick here. It's actually, in this category, it's Jamaal Charles, has 20 touchdowns receiving. That would be your top guy. So those are the running backs when it comes to receiving. All right, let's move from the offense to the defense, and let's look at that all time. And we'll start with interceptions. Emmitt Thomas, from 1966 to 1978, had 58 interceptions, just beating out Johnny Robinson, who played from 1960 to 1971. He had 57. Those are your top two. Deron Cherry, a little more recent, but still in the 20th century, 1981 to 1991, had 50. Those are your top three. Very good numbers. And as I've always said, it's difficult for players today to break into this interception list. When we're looking at any players from today that are currently playing, you go way down the list. Like I said, it's just they don't have anybody currently on the team that is even in the top 50. So Nick Bolton, 68th on the team since 2021, has 4. So as I said, there's nobody that we're even looking at as far as interceptions go for years to come. But when we move to tackles for loss, that's next category. Tamba Hall just beat out Derrick Johnson. Tamba Hall from 2006 to 2017 had 105 tackles for loss, and Derrick Johnson playing right with him. So those are two players playing together. He was on the team from 2005 to 2017. He had 103 tackles for loss. Those are your top two. Chris Jones, who's been on the team since 2016, is 4th right now with 87. Justin Houston is 3rd with 96. So I see Chris Jones at least catching Justin Houston and possibly even making it into the top spot. He would need 18 more this season to catch Tamba Hall. That might be stretching it somewhat. He'd have to have a really good season to do that. But it'll be fun to watch to see if Chris Jones, as a current player, can top this list. And if he doesn't, if he sticks with the team one more year, I would think he would become the number one player as far as this team goes. So he's currently number one. Nick Bolton is down at 12th. So he's a little farther down. He's got 32. So really it is Chris Jones we're looking at. He's a really, obviously a great defensive player. And one other category that everybody likes is the sack total. And that is Derrick Thomas by far, as far as the Kansas City Chiefs go. 1989 to 1999, had 126.5 sacks. That's an impressive number. And again, Chris Jones, as far as current players, is 4th. And he's 80, got 80.5. He still needs another 46 to catch Derrick Thomas. That's, he's going to have to average, even if he averages 10, it's going to take him a little bit. He'd have to average more like 12 in 4 years to catch Derrick Thomas. So we'll see how it goes for Chris Jones, but he definitely has a chance to move into second. All he needs is 9 sacks. Tamba Hall's second with 89.5, and as I said, Chris Jones has 80.5. So he definitely has a chance to move to second spot as far as the Kansas City Chiefs go in sacks. So that'll be another player, Chris Jones, we definitely want to watch him this season and see how he does as far as the Kansas City Chiefs records go. All right. When we shift over to the single season leaders, and we'll go back to the passing game, we'll look at, obviously, Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes, when it comes to yards, it holds the top 4 spots. Trent Green is 5th, but Patrick Mahomes in 2022 had 5,250 yards. In 2018, he had 5,097. Those are the 2 times he went over 5,000 yards. It's only happened 15 times that a quarterback has thrown for more than 5,000 yards. So very impressive that he's done it twice. Drew Brees has done it 4 times, so he's the leader as far as most times throwing for 5,000 yards. But Patrick Holmes has done it twice. This past season, though, not quite the same. He finished 13th as far as the Kansas City Chiefs go with only 3,928 yards. Is definitely his lowest number in his career. And when you look at that and you compare it to this past season, as I've said, if you listen to any podcast when we're talking about the teams, and I mentioned this, it's Joe Burrow had 4,918 yards passing. Patrick Mahomes finished 7th in the NFL with his 3,928 yards. A little lower than you would normally see him, but that's where he finished. When we're looking at touchdowns, Patrick Mahomes again had the top 4 spots again. Len Dawson has the next 2. But in 2018, Patrick Mahomes threw for 50 touchdowns. Very impressive. In fact, it's only happened 3 times that a quarterback has thrown for 50 or more touchdowns. Peyton Manning holds the record with 55, and Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes threw for 50. So those are your top 3. Peyton Manning, did it in 2013, Tom Brady in 2007, and then Patrick Mahomes in 2018. So those are the only 3 players to throw for 50 or more touchdowns. Now, this past season, though, Patrick Mahomes threw for 26 touchdowns. And when you look at it, he threw a touchdown at a 4.5% rate. When he threw the 50 touchdowns, he did it at an 8.6% rate. That's an incredible percentage rate for throwing a touchdown. And again, it was Joe Burrow led the NFL with 43 touchdown passes last season. And Patrick Mahomes, with only 26, finished in 9th spot in the NFL as far as touchdowns go. When we're looking at interceptions all time for the Kansas City Chiefs, now that is Trent Green has the most interceptions in a single season. He had 24 interceptions in 2001. 24 interceptions and 17 touchdowns. That's a backwards number. So really not that great. Patrick Mahomes last season had 11 interceptions. So like I said, he needed 12 to move up this list. He only had 11 last season. So we'll see if he's borderline moving up the list as far as the all-time interception leaders. But we'll see how that goes as far as a career goes. Last season, Baker Mayfield for Tampa, Kirk Cousins for Atlanta, and Geno Smith for Seattle were the top 3. Cousins and Mayfield had 16 apiece, and Geno Smith had 15. And the thing about Kirk Cousins is, he didn't even he played 14 games and had 16 interceptions. So not something you would want to see. And the last category we'll look at is how often these quarterbacks are getting sacked. And last season, no one was even close to Caleb Williams, who led the NFL with 68 sacks. But when it comes to the Kansas City Chiefs, Steve Fuller holds the record with 49 sacks. He was sacked 49 times in 1980, just beating out David Krieg, who in 1992 was sacked 49. Steve Fuller had 49, David Krieg had 48. Those are your top 2 numbers. Patrick Mahomes' worst season was 36 times he was sacked. That's the most he's been sacked in a single season, and that was this past season. So there's definitely, he needs some help. Might explain his lower passing numbers. It just wasn't a good season for him as far as that goes. So I expect to see probably a better season out of him, but his offensive line as well. That's what obviously he's hoping for. But 36 times for him is definitely a lot. That put him finishing that season, this past season, as 12th in the NFL as far as being sacked goes. Of course, being sacked 36 times is almost half of what Caleb Williams was at 68. So those are your leaders in the sack department. All right, let's look at the running backs. When it comes to the running backs in a single season, Larry Johnson holds the top two numbers here. Larry Johnson had 1,789 yards in 2006. The year before, in 2005, he had 1,750. So back-to-back years with 1,700 plus yards. That's really impressive to see. When you're looking at this current season, Kareem Hunt had 728 yards. Pacheco had 310. And Patrick Mahomes had 307. So your quarterback is almost in the second position. So I would expect to see a rejuvenation of the running game a little bit. I can't believe it won't be. But we'll just see as we get into the season. When it comes to the NFL, then, with only 728 yards as your leading rusher, that put Kareem Hunt all the way down at 31st position. And as everybody knows, Saquon Barkley led the NFL with 2,005 yards. Derrick Henry was second with 1,921. So this is an area where Kansas City Chiefs need some improvement. Kareem Hunt, as far as touchdowns go, rushing, had 7. So really not bad as far as the amount of attempts. He had 200 attempts, had 7 touchdowns. Derrick Henry, Jamaal Gibbs, and James Cook had 16 touchdowns apiece. Really good numbers. With 7 touchdowns, Kareem Hunt tied for 19th in the NFL as far as rushing touchdowns go. All right. When we're looking at the wide receivers past season and comparing that to the all-time wide receivers, when it comes to receptions, Tyreek Hill in 2021 had 111 receptions. Travis Kelce came close then the very next year of passing Tyreek Hill. Travis Kelce had 110. 2020, Travis Kelce had 105. 5 times a wide receiver has had 100 or more receptions for the Kansas City Chiefs. Travis Kelce has done it 3 times. The other one was Tony Gonzalez and Tyreek Hill. Those were the other 2. But 5 times it's happened, and by 3 different players. So this past season, Travis Kelce, you wouldn't even think he had a very good year, but he did have 97 receptions. So he led the team as far as receptions go. Xavier Worthy had 59. He was second in receptions for the team in this past season. Travis Kelce, with his 97 receptions, was pretty good. That put him, though, 12th in the NFL in the past season. There was actually 10 players who had 100 or more receptions last season. Travis Kelce came close. When it comes to yards, again, it was Travis Kelce, not by as much. He had 823 yards. Xavier Worthy had 638 yards. But as a wide receiver, Xavier Worthy was averaging 10.8 yards per reception. I think you'd like to see that stretched out a little bit more yards per reception as far as wide receivers go. When you're looking at all time for the team, Tyreek Hill again in 2018 had 1,479 yards. That's the most by a Kansas City Chief. Travis Kelce is a tight end, has the record as far as tight ends, and he also has a second position. In 2020, he had 1,416 yards. So those are your top 2 when it comes to receptions. The only 2 over 1,400 yards, in fact, in a single season. And when you're comparing that, though, to this past season, Jamar Chase had 1,708 yards receiving. He had 127 receptions. So both obviously would have been a record for the Kansas City Chiefs. But the 1,479 yards is a good number. I mean, Justin Jefferson had 1,533, but then Brian Thomas, who was third, only had 1,282. And I say only because it's not near 1,479. But Brian Thomas did lead the rookies as far as receiving yards go. But those are your leaders in yards. When we're looking at touchdowns, again, Tyreek Hill led the team all time with touchdowns in a single season with 15. He's tied with Dwayne Bowe, who in 2010 had 15 as well. Those are the two times they've had 15. Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, and Chris Burford in 1962. Only old name up there on this list. They had 12. But Tyreek Hill and Dwayne Bowe had 15. So that's by far the best as far as the Kansas City Chiefs go in touchdown receptions. Last season's Xavier Worthy had 6 to lead the team in touchdowns. And again, as I said, Ja'Marr Chase, who had the trifecta, had 17 touchdowns last season. Xavier Worthy with his 6 put him all the way down at tied for 35th in the NFL as far as touchdown receptions. So again, an area, Kansas City with a 15-2 record and no really premier running back or wide receiver as far as the numbers that stand out is impressive. And even with Mahomes not having one of his better seasons, and they still finished 15-2. So very impressive, really, when you think about it. When we're looking at receptions last season, like I said, Travis Kelce is the tight end, led the team in receptions. And as far as running backs, Perrine was 5th on the team with receptions. He had 28. So really the running backs kind of shared it a little bit. Kareem Hunt had 23. Really, Pacheco had 12. So really the running backs didn't play a big part. Really the tight end, Travis Kelce, had the massive majority of the receptions. And we'll see what this next year brings. I mean, in fact, Noah Gray was 4th on the team in receptions as another tight end with 40. So the two tight ends really dominated this team in receptions. So we'll see what this next year brings for them. All right, let's move to the defense and see what the defense had to say about this past season. When we're looking at interceptions this past season, get to that real quick on my list here. All right, when we're looking at interceptions last season, Jaden Hicks had 3 interceptions to lead the team as far as interceptions go. So really, not too great. There's plenty of other players had more interceptions than that last season, but he did lead the team as far as that goes. The entire NFL in the 2024 season, Kirby Joseph for Detroit had 9 interceptions. With 3, Jaden Hicks was tied for 19th. When you look at the team all time, Emmitt Thomas in 1974 had 12 interceptions. Very impressive. That put him 5th all time in the NFL for single season most receptions in a single season with that 12. I mean, the record is 14, so really a good season by Emmitt Thomas. And then there were 4 times a player had 10 interceptions in a single season. And interestingly, Johnny Robinson in 1966 and 1970 had 10 interceptions. So to have 10 in a single season is really incredible. Another interesting fact is that Bobby Hunt in 1966 and Johnny Robinson in 1966 had 10 interceptions. Wow. That would be quite a backfield when you have 20 interceptions between the two players. That would have been fun to see that defensive team playing. that's their leaders as far as interceptions go. When we're looking at tackles for loss, our next category, Nick Bolton had 11 tackles for loss. Chris Jones had 9. So as we were talking about earlier, as far as Chris Jones moving up the list, he'd need a lot more than 9 to set the record. I think I said he needed at least 15 or something. So he's going to have to improve over the past season to move up. It may take him a couple seasons to set the all-time record as far as tackles for loss go. But those are your top 2. George Karlaftis also had 9 tackles for loss. When you're comparing that to the team all-time, Justin Houston in 2014 had 23 tackles for loss in a single season. Jared Allen in 2007 and Chris Jones in 2018 had 19 apiece. So 19 tackles for loss Chris Jones had in 2018. This past season, like I said, he had 9, half of that, not even half. So I'm not sure what the difference is, if he's slowing down or what the reason was. But Chris Jones had 9. So we'll see. 15 games, so he missed a couple of games. He might have had a few more if he'd have played all 17 games. But we'll see. When you compare the tackles for loss to the entire NFL in this past season, Myles Garrett had 22 to lead the NFL, a good number. So he led the NFL with 22. Trey Hendrickson had 19, as well as T.J. Watt. They both had 19. So those are your top 3 leaders in tackles for loss. With only 9, actually Nick Bolton had 11, leading that put him way down the list, halfway down the list. Looks like about with 11, about 26th in the NFL. So the bottom half of the league as far as tackles for loss goes. So an area where you might see some improvement next season. Same with the sacks. When you're looking at the sacks, really not that great this past season for the Kansas City Chiefs. George Karlaftis had 8 sacks. Deshaun Wharton had 6.5. Chris Jones had 5. Those are your top 3 players. 8. Nobody had 10. So quite a drop-off as far as sacks go. And when you're comparing that to the team all-time, Chris Jones again in 2018 he had quite a season with his 19 tackles for loss, and he had 15.5 sacks that same season. So that is the most sacks by a Kansas City Chief, 15.5, beating out Neil Smith, who in 1993 had 15. So those are your top 2 with 15. And like I said, Karlaftis had 8 to lead the team last season. And when you're looking and comparing that to the NFL, Trey Hendrickson had 17.5. Myles Garrett had 14. So with 8, quite a ways down the list again. Just an area you don't want to be. But with 8, you've been tied for 27th. Karlaftis was tied for 27th. So again, bottom of the NFL is when it comes to the sack department. So when you're looking at the team as a whole, it's a really interesting take. When you compare these numbers, to be 15-2 and in a very good division, I think, and a division that's going to even be better this coming season, to be 15-2 and have numbers that don't just pop out at you in any particular category, that's really impressive, I think. And you wonder if they do have some players have standout seasons this next year, what that will do for the team. I really don't know. Kansas City may have improved this past season with the players they've picked up, whether in free agency or the draft. But I do know that the other teams have gotten significantly better as well. And I do see this division being a dogfight. I don't think that Kansas City is going to walk away with it as easily as they have in the past. But we'll see if I'm right on that or not. But you have 3 teams out of the 4 teams had winning records. And the team that was the worst, 4-13 Raiders, also really improved their team. So you've got 4 teams who are looking to, well, I say you have 3 teams are looking to knock off the Kansas City Chiefs. So it's going to be a tough year, I think, all around for this division. It'll be a fun division to watch and see these games when they go head-to-head. Last season, Kansas City was able to handle the division with a 5-1 record. So I'll be shocked, honestly, if I see that the Kansas City Chiefs finish 5-1 in the division again. And if they do, when we do this again next year, I will admit that my shock was for nothing. They would be the same as they have been in the past years, but we'll see how that goes. So that is the Kansas City Chiefs. Next up is the second place Los Angeles Chargers. So stick around to hear about them, and they're great players on that team. And if you wanted to listen to any of my other podcasts, if you're a fan of an AFC team, just check out my podcast at Just the Stats NFL and pick up those other games. I've also done podcasts on the NFL as a whole, the all-time greats and career stats, the all-time greats and single season. So if you want to listen to those, just go back and listen to the previous podcast. Appreciate it if you would like this podcast and subscribe to this podcast. I'd appreciate it as I try to grow this new at it, but I will continue to work on improving it in any way I can. If you have any comments, questions, or suggestions, or anything you say here that I've said incorrectly, let me know and I will correct it. You can go to Facebook, X, or Instagram and leave a message at Just the Stats NFL at any one of those areas. But for this podcast, that is a wrap of our discussion on the Kansas City Chiefs. So until next time, I am out.